Thank you, everyone, for joining our event today and coming back because you're going to be very, very glad that you did come back because today we have with us Mr. Richard Maybury, who is a amazing author and economist. And I am a big fan of all of his books. He has 11 books that are quite well known called the Uncle Eric series, which have been used for many, many years throughout the entire country and actually the world in homeschooling and in schools because they do such a great job of explaining economics and law and in such a way that people can understand it. And that's probably, I think, Richard's greatest genius is that he can take what most people consider complicated economics, law, politics, and make it very, very simple for even a child to understand. And that's not easy for people to do. And so that, I think, Richard, is one of your greatest contributions, is making these things simplified for people to understand.
Well, thank you very much. Those are very kind words, and I appreciate it. Clyde, let me say, you have my personal thanks for the work that you're doing, because the world so needs an alternative view, or maybe many alternative views, to the prevailing wisdom, so-called, that everybody is taught in these government-controlled schools. And thank you very much. I mean, there are not enough people like you that are doing this kind of work, and I hope you keep it up for a long time.
Well, thank you. And, you know, I have grandkids that are in schools now, and it's just driving me crazy what they're learning and what they're exposed to at a young age. And it's getting worse every week. And, you know, and the kids and making the kids wear masks. I don't know how you feel about that, but that to me is just criminal.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we're learning, you know, the government is doing this vast as a scientific experiment on the whole population, forcing people to do things. And one thing we're learning is how important it is when you converse with someone to see their face. I confess it came as a major surprise to me to realize that it really restricts your ability to connect with the other person. It's a very big thing. It's touted as a small thing. Oh, you know, it's no big deal. Just wear a mask. But it really does interfere. Now, humans are profoundly social creatures, and this is, you know, breaking up that social orientation that we have. And I think it's doing a lot of damage, especially to children. They read your face even more than adults do, I would imagine.
I agree.
Well, anyhow, go ahead.
No, I agree with you 100%. And that's what I'm seeing with the kids, you know. And, you know, we've gone back and forth with the grandkids that we're raising. We're raising two of our grandkids, and then we have two that live across the street. But, you know, they've gone back and forth between going to school and staying home and being on virtually. But you know what? When they're at home and they're not with their friends, they get strange, and their behavior suffers. And you know, so it's better for them to be in school, even though they have to wear the mask in the school. But you're right. I mean, it's really crucial when we tell our kids, you know, take off that mask whenever you possibly can. And you know, so anyway, you're right. It does impair communication and the bond between people to have that mask on. It's a horrible thing, and there is absolutely no scientific evidence supporting that a mask does anything positive at all. Or that doesn't stop a virus, that's for sure. And you know, it actually does harm. So it weakens your immune system to wear it. So anyway, that's just something that we really need to deal with. But basically, it's all about what they're doing with the laws. And your book, I'm going to show everybody Whatever Happened to Justice, one of my favorites of yours, is all about common law and natural law and what the difference is between common law or natural law and ruler's law, or what we're seeing now with these edicts and mandates coming down from the government, and with the emergency, being able to take away even more of our rights and, forcing us to do things that they want us to do, like forcing us to do the masks and the vaccines. So let's get into that, Richard, if we
Okay.
could. Yeah. What do you see? What do you see as the solution to what they're doing to us right now?
Well, the solution is to make people aware of what the government-controlled schools try to hide. Actually, they have successfully hidden it now. The teachers have no idea what it is they're really teaching when it comes to law.
Mhm.
That there are two fundamental types of law. One is political law, which is what you just referred to, King's law, or the rule of the majority, whatever you want to call it. And then the other one is, which has been completely forgotten, except by a few lawyers, is what used to be called the common law, or I think a better term is natural law.
Yes.
And nobody is taught any of this in the government-controlled schools anymore, that there are two kinds of law. And very basically, the old common law or natural law
Yes.
was the basic legal system of America until socialism started taking over in the 20th century. Before then, law was based, now grab this is so important. Law was based on ethics.
Right.
The
Right.
law wasn't the law unless it was logically consistent with the principles of right and wrong.
Right.
Now, there are two basic principles that are taught by all philosophies, all religions, just about any viewpoint of the world that you want to name. One of them is do all you have agreed to do,
Right.
and that's the basis of the old contract law.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is do not encroach on other persons or their property,
Right.
and that's the basis of tort law and some criminal law.
Mm-hmm.
And the old common law, which went back thousands of years,
Mm-hmm.
in all cultures, you will find that their legal systems over thousands of years were based fundamentally on those 17 words. Do all you have agreed to do, and do not encroach on other persons or their property. Everything that human beings consider to be right or wrong comes under those 17 words. That they were in any given court case. The people, if you had a dispute with your neighbor, or maybe a crime was committed or whatever, they all those questions go back to those 17 words. This is all explained in my Whatever Happened to Justice book. And that it's amazing to me about that book. It was first published.
Yeah. It is an amazing book. It really is. And it's so simple. I've just been rereading it today. But go ahead. You said when it was first published.
Yeah, right. I'm always amazed at it. I mean, it was published first in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
It's 28 years ago, I believe. And Amazon is still rating it as 5 stars. I wonder if there's anything that they do that with. But anyhow, the popularity of the thing is spreading, as it is with all the Uncle Eric books, because people want to know what the schools didn't teach them. And that's what I do. I used to be a teacher. My wife was a teacher, and we know what doesn't go on in the schools as well as what does go on in the schools. And the schools, this is another thing for everybody. You got to grasp this. Everything in a school is censored. Now, if you ask an American, what do you think about free press, free speech?
Mhm.
Freedom of assembly. Oh yeah, those are really essential. Bill of Rights, First Amendment. Absolutely. You can't have freedom unless you have that. And yet the schools, everything in a school is censored. And it's censored to direct the kids to believe that now these are government controlled schools. All schools are owned or controlled by governments. All of the presentation is directed at convincing the kids that the solution to every problem is more government.
Right. Right.
They all come out with that background. There's some of them that fall through the cracks and they're independent thinkers and they realize there's something wrong with this.
Right.
But they are not told, even though the ones, some do fall through the cracks, they don't know about the fact that there are two kinds of law. Now, I just talked about the natural law. The reason I think that is so important, the natural law, is that there are behaviors that work for various species. Like, for instance, running is a behavior that works for a fox, and flying works for a bird, and swimming works for a fish.
Right.
Well, those 17 words are what work for humans. They are they are what is in our DNA as far as we can tell.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's good for us to follow those 17 words, those behaviors. Now, the fox can choose not to run, and the fish can choose not to swim. The bird can choose not to fly, but they will not prosper, and they will probably eventually die. Same thing with the humans. If we don't follow those 17 words, the same thing's going to happen to us. And I think that is what's happening to America right now. The idea that there is a higher law than any government's law has been completely lost, and the country is just starting to crumble because of it.
Yeah.
And that's not new to me. I've been predicting it for a long time. There was an economist in the 1940s, Frederick Hayek, who predicted all of this, and he explained all of it. I'm working very much off of his work. He got the Nobel Prize for it in the 1970s.
Right.
But most people just still ignore it. This idea of political law, where you just go out and you make up law out of thin air, and the law becomes the guide for right and wrong. My God, that's insane. It's totally insane. But that is the system we have today. There are the federal government alone. And this is another thing. It's very hard to grasp. So I would please, audience, you'll bear with me on this.
Right.
Try to imagine the federal government alone, not the state governments, and not the local governments, just the federal government has made up 300,000 laws.
Wow.
And each of us is legally responsible for knowing which of those laws apply to us and obeying them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those laws are absolutely insane. They are crazy. I'll give you an example. We've all had the experience of standing next to a freshwater pond or a lake or a river and skipping stones into it. Well, under the law that these fools in Washington have made up, skipping stones into the water is a federal offense. It's a felony. It is water pollution.
Felony?
Beg pardon?
A felony?
Yes, a felony. A felony means at least a year in prison. It's even more crazy than that. If you wade into the river, let's say, and you bend over and you scoop up a handful of sand, we've all done that, and then you dump it back into the water, that's water pollution. And that is another felony, more than a year in prison.
My God.
There's another book, actually, it's funny, a book that's often sold in conjunction with mine, with Whatever Happened to Justice, is one called The Trenton Pickle Ordinance. And it's written by Dick Hyman.
Mm-hmm.
It was written a long time ago. It's a whole book full of these insane laws that people have just made up under the theory that majority rules. Whatever the majority decides must be what's right. So, again, I mean,
Yep.
Keep in your mind there are two kinds of law: political law and natural law, or common law. And the one that is based on ethics is the one that the schools have practically erased.
Erased. Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, they teach that the best presidents were the presidents that spent the most money and were the most activist presidents, like Roosevelt, for example.
Yes.
Was a
Yep.
great hero, because he did all this stuff and took unconstitutional powers and all these different things but that's the great hero that the kids learn is what a great president does. So it's this constant brainwashing, isn't it, to really appreciate more, make the kids appreciate bigger and more government, and they have no idea what that's doing to our country. um, it's sad. So I think that all of these laws that you say, what that ends up doing, I think you would agree, is creating a prison population that is never, it's just never stops growing, and it's getting more out of control. And under the common law, there was hardly any incarceration, right?
That's right. In fact, it wasn't possible. Now I'm going back some centuries
Right.
when it was in a more pure form. There was the principle called outlawry. There was no, as a general rule, there was no government courts that you went to have your legal problems solved or anything. The courts were private. They were very often attached to the churches, because the churches had these laws of ethics that they taught, and when two people had a dispute or some crime happened or something, they would go to a clergyman, and they would say to the clergyman, we need a neutral third party here to figure out what is the right thing to do. And the clergy, using their laws of ethics, would hear the case on both sides and make a decision. Now that's basically what the common law was, and went back many, many centuries, and you'll find it in all societies. It works that way. What happened was, of course, the question is, well, how does this clergyman have the ability to enforce the law? He doesn't have police or an army behind him. So, what are his decisions worth? How can he possibly enforce them? Well, he could give various warnings to the person, but if nothing worked, if the criminal wasn't going to knuckle under and make restitution to the victim or the victim's heirs, the clergyman or judge, that's where judges came from, the judge said, all right, if you cannot live by our laws, then neither shall you have the protection of our laws. You will be outside the law.
Outlaw.
That's where the word outlaw came from.
Right.
A person who's outside the law. And that means that his legal standing is no different than that of a rabbit or a gopher or any other animal. And he is completely unprotected by the law. Now, that was equivalent to a death sentence. It wasn't that the judge was going to mete out the death sentence. It's just that if you've been declared an outlaw, you're in a lot of trouble, because you aren't going to get any kind of protection from the law. So that was the enforcement mechanism under that system.
So if somebody wanted to track that person down and turn them into a slave for the rest of their life, there was no protection against that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now you always have the possibility that a person, that the judge was just a bad judge. The judges are as human as anybody else. Sometimes they make mistakes. So there was a safety mechanism there. It was called sanctuary. If you could get to a church, you could stay in the church and be protected. You were in a sanctuary, and you could be protected there until a higher court heard your case and made a decision. So, you know, and, you know, I mean, when you compare it to today's system, I call it today's system. There's no system. The law today is just insanity. It just, I mean, it really drives me nuts to think about it.
Well, I think it's become a system where people make money, because instead of what you said, which was the principle of common law, was restitution, which means restoring the person who's been harmed, we now have incarceration, which is a big business. And in fact, I believe that every state in the country, the biggest expense that the states have is incarceration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with every word you said. You said that very well. That, you know, there's a giant bureaucracy that has a lot to gain by the insanity of this system.
Yep.
And it just keeps getting worse. That's what's so awful, because all the kids in school are taught to believe in majority rule. Whatever the majority decides is what's right. Holy cow, that is just nuts.
Yeah, it's just you've institutionalized oppression of the minority by the majority. So you know, it's just it is nuts. And but there's money behind it, not only for the people who own the prisons, and you know, the private prison industry is growing, but the guards who work in the prisons, the unions that you know, have the guards as part of their union, so the union makes money. The judges, the police departments, and the sheriff's departments, and it's all. And then, of course, since they can make things illegal, like drugs, for example, then you know, you've got a lot of money being paid to people, for corrupt judges and corrupt police officers, by the drug dealers, and it's just a complete mess.
It really is.
Yeah.
I think possibly the most insane part of it is that if for instance, I commit a crime, I hurt somebody,
Right.
They're not going to tell me that you know, I have to pay restitution to this person. They're going to lock me up someplace so I can't pay restitution to the person. I'm just going to sit in jail, and in fact, that person I hurt is going to be taxed to support me in prison.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just one example of how absolutely insane today's political law is.
It really is, and it gets more insane every day. And you know, I don't see it changing unless what we're going through right now, which is making, you know, magnitudes larger of an insanity, would wake people up, and people finally realize that we need to do something to get ourselves back to, you know, some kind of a common law based restitution system, which we had under the original republic. So that's one thing that I'm working on, Richard. I don't know what you know about this, but have you been hearing about the Corporation of 1871, and that we've really been, go ahead.
No, that's new to me. Please explain.
Okay, so Lynn Wood and others, and people, you know, quite famous people now, have been saying that it's true that in 1871, there was a new corporation created, that they changed for the Constitution of the United States to the Constitution of the United States, created a corporation, and the bankers and the Vatican and the Crown were all involved in this because we owed so much money from the Civil War. This was a way that they could take control, created the corporation in 1871. The original republic that we were under, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, our original founding documents, that republic ended when the Civil War started and the senators walked out. And that corporation was created to control us and to basically the tax money and everything else that we pay is going to that corporation. So and they also put us under admiralty law. So we were under the law of England, the admiralty law instead of the law of the land, which is the common law. That jurisdiction changed as well. That's a big part of it, huge part of it. So our courts are now admiralty courts instead of common law land-based jurisdiction courts. So you're not familiar with that whole concept.
Yeah, I am admiralty law and all of that. I did not know about the corporation though. Well, thank you for telling me.
Yeah, I'll send you a lot of information on it because it's a big part of our summit that we're doing. We are having experts on that speak in this summit that you're hearing right now, that you're part of. So it is something that I would like to bring to your attention, because if there's anybody that should know about this and what the potential ramifications are, it's you. I believe that it's a good thing that people are aware of this now and are working on trying to restore that original republic and go back to common law. A lot of people are talking about that around the country.
I'm glad to hear it. That is really great.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that's got to happen.
Yes.
If we don't go back to rational law, we are lost.
Yes.
And what else can you say?
Yeah. And so what you've done, I believe, and this is why I so much wanted to interview you, is you have, in Whatever Happened to Justice, laid out exactly what we should be going back to, and laid it out beautifully. Like, this is all bad, by the way, as you say in the book, based on do unto others as they would have them do unto you. These basic fundamental religious moral principles that are universal, right? To all religions. Yeah. Yeah. And so you've laid it out how it can work, because you've studied common law and the systems and the way it works. And that's what we need to go back to. The question is, how do we get there? And I believe that this fact that they created these fake corporations, they're real corporations, but it's fraudulent. The people don't know it. Very, very few people understand that we're actually under a corporation. And this also goes to our birth certificates. Our birth certificates starting in 1919 were printed all in large caps, and they actually consider us. And if you look at your driver's license, it's all in large caps. That's actually the corporation. That's a corporation, a corporate entity. They've stolen our identity.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm really going to want to get you up to speed on this, because if you know all this with your background and your knowledge, we could maybe make some ground up on what we need to do to get our country back.
Okay. Now, did you want to go any further into this, or you want to talk about whatever happened to Penny Candy?
Yeah, a little bit. I do want to mention before, well, let me put up whatever Penny Candy up here so people can see it. This is like the first or second book in your series, right? Whatever Happened to Penny Candy?
Yeah, it's actually the second one.
Okay.
The first one is sets the stage for all of them. But most people, they find Whatever Happened to Penny Candy so enlightening that they spread the word about that, and it has become the vanguard of the whole set.
Yeah, and when you wrote this, I think a penny. Let's see. Let's put it in dollars. It's easier that way. I think before the Federal Reserve came into existence, a dollar bought a certain amount, and that same dollar would only buy about 3% of what it bought, and before the Federal Reserve was put into, is that right?
I think it would be around 5% according to the Consumer Price Index, but then again, the Consumer Price Index is a lie, so nobody really knows exactly. Yeah,
right, but it's somewhere.
You got the right idea.
Yeah, somewhere between 3 and 5%. of what it
Hmm.
was then. So why is that? And that's what you explain in Whatever Happened to Penny Candy. Yeah. So go ahead, give people the basics of what's going
Uh,
on economically.
well, very, very clearly, very, very short. And this ties into what you're saying about 1871 and the corporation and all. Um, the governments under socialism gave themselves the permission to counterfeit.
Mhm.
And it has exactly, their government counterfeiting money has exactly the same effect as if any criminal counterfeiter is doing it on his own in his basement with a printing press.
Mhm.
When you increase the supply of dollars, the value of each individual dollar falls
Mhm.
because money responds to the law of supply and demand just like everything else does. And now this is, I'm making this very short. This is all done in a very surreptitious way that very, very few people understand through the Federal Reserve System. So I'm boiling it all down to something really simple. What the government does in order to pay for part of its spending when it begins to worry, when these politicians and bureaucrats become afraid of a tax revolt, then they go out and print money just like a counterfeiter. And they use the banking system and the Federal Reserve, so it's something that the average person has no idea about. But that's the essential process, is increasing the money supply by printing a whole lot of it,
Right.
or uh, injecting money into the banking system, into your bank accounts and all, which we just saw, a month or so ago. Um, that causes the value of each individual dollar to fall, and so prices rise to compensate for that.
Right.
And that's inflation, just the bare bones of it, but that's what goes on. The governments all around the world, just under socialism, under socialist philosophy, they gave themselves permission to counterfeit,
Right.
and that's what they do. All governments do that
Yeah.
these days. They didn't used to. It was a very rare thing before the
Mhm.
20th century. Now all governments do it.
Right.
And so, it used to be that money was gold and silver because they can't be created on a printing press.
Mhm.
People trusted them to retain their value. That's the main thing that money needs to be, is a store of value. As
Mhm.
long as people believe it's going to, a dollar is going to retain its value, then they will want that in trade for their goods or services, and your economy will work very smoothly. Once they lose faith that it's a store of value, then they don't want the money. And then you've got no way to trade your goods or services with other people, and everything starts breaking down. And usually that happens, inflations go through three stages, and that starts happening in second stage. And if you get into the third stage, then it just runs away. Prices rise, you know, sometimes as much as 100% per day in
That's
some
like
stages of it.
we could, a couple examples of that would be Germany after
Yes,
World War One, right? And then
that's right.
Zimbabwe
Yes,
in more recent terms.
right. In whatever happened to penny candy, I give you a list of
Mhm.
runaway inflations of the past,
Yeah.
and I think I put like 20 or 30 countries on there to give examples. It's, governments have been doing it a long, long time, and they're doing it more and more because
Right.
they're all so big now. They've all trained their populations using the schools to believe that the solution to every problem is more government. Well, how do you pay for that government? If you're going to, it's just
Print more
insane.
money.
And
Print more money. And that's
yeah,
really it's legalized theft, right? Because every time they print more money, they're reducing the value of the money that the people have.
that's right. That's right. It's a hidden tax.
Right.
Inflation is a hidden tax.
Right.
The government does exactly as you say. They reduce the value of the money that we all have, so we can't buy as much. And the government is, by printing the money and spending it, is um, capturing that value that we have all lost.
Right. So if if nothing else, everyone, this book here, Whatever Happened to Penny Candy, is an absolute must read. And Whatever Happened to Justice is an absolute must read. I'm showing that again here, Richard. And and then and I'll tell you my favorite one, other than those two, is what it, World War II, the rest of the story. I've read this 5 times.
Is
And
that right?
yeah, and you know why? Because, you know, my generation was so brainwashed about World War II and that we saved the world, and then of course I had 2 parents, both my mother and my father were World War II vets.
Oh.
So my dad was a fighter pilot, my mother was a nurse. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, my dad was actually a prisoner of war too for over a year.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
gee.
But anyway, very patriotic parents. But, and then all those movies we saw when we were growing up,
Yeah.
and it's all baloney. It's all BS. And you lay it out so beautifully here from an economist point of view, with the actual numbers of how many tanks, how many planes were being produced by England, by Russia, by Germany, by America. And it shows that there is absolutely no way that Germany could have defeated Russia and England. We didn't need to get involved in that war. In fact,
That's right.
and you lay it out so beautifully. I just love this book. But the reason I've had to read it 5 times is because of the cognitive dissonance from all the brainwashing I've had my whole life about World War II. And I think everybody, has had that. And so I just recommend World War I, the rest of the story is same thing. We should have never been in that war either. And World War II, the rest of the story, we should have never been in that war. So if you believe in freedom, you believe in not having wars, for America to get involved in these ridiculous wars, just know that these books they'll just really bring that point home to you, that we do not need to be engaging in these wars around the world. It's the people that the corporate military industrial complex and all that gets us into these wars, and they just make things worse and steal our wealth and our health and our lives with these wars. So you've done a great, those two books, in my opinion, are extremely important books for everybody to read.
Well, thank you very much. That's high praise, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, you've made quite a contribution. I just want to get it out there. So is it still bluestockingpress.com where people go to get these books?
Yes.
Okay, so that's this blue, BLUE, stocking press.com. It's .com,
That's right.
.com. And you can order all of Richard's books. And I highly recommend, if you're somebody that's homeschooling your children or thinking about homeschooling your children, the whole Uncle Eric series is tremendous. You could educate your kids. All they need to learn about economics will be in those books. All they need to know about justice and law and legality and all that will be in those books. And everything they need to know about how governments get us into wars and shouldn't be can be learned in those books. So there's a lot there, a lot of knowledge in those 11 books.
Do you mind, Clyde, if I also give a 800 number?
No, please do.
You can also order by telephone, 800-509-5400. And again, that's 800-509-5400.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat that one more time, folks, where people are running around getting their pens and papers out. 800-509-5400. Okay, and
Thank you.
bluestockingpress.com. And thank you, and thank your wife Samantha and Anne Marie, all of you at Blue Stocking Press for helping make this happen. I appreciate it so much, Richard. And
Oh,
you know, maybe we can do this again sometime. And
yeah,
I will.
sounds good.
I'm going to send you a couple recordings from the other speakers about the 1871 corporation and all
Oh,
that
good, good.
entails.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I
All right.
appreciate it. Again, Clyde, you're doing a great job. I really am pleased that you're working so hard at this, and keep up the good work.
Well, you know, it's I have grandkids with 7 grandkids and 4 kids. Do I have a choice? I have to, you know, I don't think I do.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point.
So thank you again so much for joining us today, and thank you everyone for being on. And we'll see you all at the next interview. But thank you for joining today, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you.